We have to get to a military base in Washington at dawn. We fly over the Caribbean before the Cuban coast comes into view. It has been no mean feat. It took 3 months of negotiations to obtain permission to land here, at the US naval base of Guantanamo Bay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to be the first to welcome you to Guantanamo Bay, where the local time is 12:19.
We take a ferry to cross the bay. Hundreds of prisoners took the same route in early 2002. These images spread all over the world. Some of these men were arrested by the American intelligence services. Others were simply taken from Afghanistan in the aftermath of 9/11. A total of 780. What happened to them? How did the Guantanamo prison fade into obscurity? There was a time when American presidents made political slogans out of it.
Absolutely committed to closing the detention facility at Guantanamo.
I just signed an order directing Secretary Mattis to keep open the detention facilities in Guantanamo Bay.
But after that, silence fell. There were no more images either. 10 years ago, they welcomed the press here. In 2013, a member of our team was able to film daily life at the base. Soldiers in training.
Do their patrol.
This meant more opportunities for interviews with soldiers and senior officers, and even filming inside the prison.
If you follow me this way, I'll show you a standard cell.
I don't have the size of the window.
During that time, they organized guided tours for journalists.
What you see before you are two different displays. The top display are basic issued items for compliant detainees, and the bottom display are for non-compliant.
Soldiers even went so far as to demonstrate the force-feeding process, which they used for a number of years to break hunger strikes among prisoners.
Most of the detainees will let us know which side to put it in, and they'll direct the whole process. So there are 3 agencies.
But since then, the atmosphere has changed dramatically. A soldier is permanently at our side, deciding whether or not we can take photographs. Interviews are practically forbidden. No filming of local residents, of the military infrastructure, or, of course, of the prison. But it is there, as satellite images show. A large complex where only 30 prisoners remain. But at the naval base, the prison seems to have disappeared from the landscape. Out of sight, out of mind. Around 6,000 people live here. A tiny outpost where the American national anthem rings out every morning. An old-fashioned microcosm, reminiscent of a holiday village. With its open-air cinema, its bars, its gift shop, and a McDonald's, the only one in Cuba. On the local airwaves, we come across Radio Guantanamo.
AFM, the Eagle.
In the studio, we find archives of broadcasts produced as far back as the 1950s on vinyl.
Which I'm not a huge fan of, but
take a look at the radio station's tagline, "Rockin' in Fidel's backyard." A reminder that behind a fence only a few kilometers away lies Cuba, with its communist regime and its fishing villages. 2 worlds completely cut off from each other. Almost cut off from the outside world, too. In a small area of the base lies Camp Justice. At the foot of this monument, families of victims of the 9/11 attacks have left messages. Because this derelict stretch of tarmac is the scene for the preliminary hearings of the men accused of organizing these attacks, which changed the course of history. That's right, the preliminary hearings, 23 years after the event. James Connell is a lawyer for one of the accused, Ammar al-Baluchi.
Guantanamo was set up as an expeditionary court. That is a court overseas, outside the United States, in a way that was intended to be highly temporary. But I've been here full time since 2011, and it's been temporary the whole time.
The hearings take place behind closed doors, in this room within a purpose-built facility.
It's very easy for things to get disrupted here. They are disrupted by flooding. They're disrupted by hurricanes. They're disrupted by security intrusions. They're disrupted by FBI investigations into the defendants. Over the years, all of these things have slowed the military commissions process down to a crawl.
They initially charged 5 men in connection with the September 11 attacks, but they decided to withdraw Ramzi Ben al-Shiba from the trial, who they judged unfit to stand due to the post-traumatic effects of the torture he suffered. An absurdly slow process. An ordeal for the families of the victims, like Deborah. This is the second time she has come to the base to attend the hearings of the accused. Her husband died when the Twin Towers collapsed, and in 2020, her eldest son committed suicide after a prolonged bereavement and depression.
You know, 9/11 for the people who are directly involved is a continuous discontinuity. I am constantly bombarded with numerous things in regards to litigations, and over the years, identification of body parts.
Plus, I live outside of New York City right now.
23 years without any answers, and the chilling prospect that she may never find out what truly happened.
You're damaged.
Wow, what would be the meaning of justice? I honestly feel like it's already, it passed the point of justice. Right now, really, no one's been sentenced. There's been no sentencing. Most people outside of the 9/11 community don't realize that. These people say to me, "You're still doing that? Really? On an island like Gitmo? I thought they closed that."
These were the only 2 interviews we were allowed to conduct in Guantanamo. It's time to face the facts. To discuss what actually happened, we need to go elsewhere. Mansour al-Daifi explores the streets of Brussels. Originally from Yemen, he spent 14 years in Guantanamo prison. Released in 2016 without charge, he was sent to Serbia, a completely unknown country for him.
Yeah, 2 heartbeats. No, they didn't bring this one.
Today, he gets ready to embark on a project he holds close to his heart, exhibiting prisoners' paintings at the European Parliament.
This is the force feeding. When hunger strike, they would strap us on the force feeding chair, and they would force feed that through our noses. Exhibiting this art at the European Parliament is really a historic moment. People deserve to know the truth about Guantanamo.
And for Mansour, speaking the truth also means acknowledging that no evidence has ever been found to convict the vast majority of Guantanamo prisoners. Out of the 780 detainees, 750 have been gradually released in small groups, discreetly, without apology or compensation. Of the 30 remaining detainees, only 1 has received a life sentence. 10 are facing war crime charges in the military courts. 3 are considered too dangerous to be released, and 16 are awaiting release.
Maybe 2% of those have some disconnections. The rest of the prisoners, like 60 children we have among us. And we always told the interrogators, government, try us before your justice system. If you have something against us, we're ready to face justice. I was always asked why I'm here, what I have done, what would happen to me. Because nobody tells you what's going to happen. What have you done, until when? Like every interrogators want to prove that you are Al-Qaeda. They want to convince that you are Al-Qaeda.
Mansour now works for an organization that defends victims of torture. He was taken prisoner in 2001 while on a mission with a Saudi Arabian NGO in Afghanistan.
We went to take the medicine. We were ambushed by one of the warlords on the road. When the United States started invading Afghanistan, the American airplanes were throwing leaflets offering large bounties for anyone who can bring a terrorist, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, whatsoever. full of guys that, like, you get real, you know, in the leaflets, I can share later in my laptop, said, like, change your life forever. And people get bounties, tens of thousands of dollars. And the higher the rank you told them, the more money you got. Can I show a photo what they...
Mansour's captors handed him over to the US Army, who took him to a black site, one of the secret sites where intelligence agencies applied enhanced interrogation techniques, in other words, torture, authorized at the time by the US administration.
Those 3 months was hanged, beating, naked, no sleep, lost a lot of weight, almost fake execution, torture. They wanted me to admit to this Qaeda general whatsoever, and middle-aged Egyptian named Adil. I had nothing, like, I'm from Yemen. So whatever they want, I said yes. When I got out, I couldn't even walk.
Al-Qapradan is a lawyer for one of the accused in the September 11 attacks. Just as with the majority of detainees, he also suffered long months of torture that left him with brain damage. She is pleading for him to have access to medical treatment.
He did this early on after he got lawyers, right after he came to Guantanamo in 2006, because he didn't know how to describe what was going on in his head. You know, they walled him at the black sites, right, and for hours at a time.
Like, here, what the people don't understand what means torture, but not having the medical treatment, it means the torture still going.
Despite the images published by the Department of Defense, which claim to offer reassurance regarding detention conditions, a UN report published in 2023 states that Guantanamo detainees continued to be subjected to cruel and degrading treatment that could legally qualify as torture. We travel to Heidelberg, Germany, to meet with Fianola Nia-Aulean, the author of this report.
You know, there's an easy and obvious recommendation, which is close Guantanamo. To be held, it's Kafkaesque, the idea you are held for almost 2 decades of your life. You are never charged with anything. You are never told why you are there. You are never given access to the information that keeps you there, and you can't speak to your family. I mean, this is the essence of the denial of the most basic rights to the dignity of the person.
In theory, 16 detainees are free to leave Guantanamo because no charges have ever been brought against them. But according to the American administration, no country is willing to accept them.
These 16 men who need to go home and who suffer the psychological suffering of these men having been told that they can go and then, like, they're not going is profound and deep. And the only way you will solve that problem is at a political level. You cannot have low-level officials trying to fix that. You need the President of the United States using all of his powers. But here's the thing, these men are not important enough. And so, no, we're a really long way away from implementing my report.
It's like preaching in the desert. Everything is now being done to keep this prison out of the media spotlight. We have repeatedly requested interviews with the US government, to no avail. But one key figure agreed to talk to us. We meet up with him in Michigan. He is a retired general, Michael Leonard, who was deployed to build the prison.
This is a picture of X-ray as it was being built, the initial camp. I received the deployment order at 4 p.m. on Friday, the 4th of January, 2002, and I was told, you have 96 hours to put together an organization, fly it to Cuba, and build the first 100 cells. When the military goes to war, they often go to a war because they've been attacked, and they feel, in the case of 9/11, there was righteous anger, there was a great deal of fear, and it's always bad to make decisions when you're angry and afraid. Additionally, our elected politicians knew they had to do something or be seen to be doing something. So Guantanamo was selected.
Lynette went against the grain of an administration that recognized no rights for prisoners.
This is, of course, this picture was taken, I think, by the Miami Herald when we brought in the Koran, and I was showing the various reporters that what we were going to give the detainees. This is the chaplain doing the call to prayer. I just felt that it was important to have somebody there that understood the culture. We essentially would do the call to prayer before the national anthem.
Despite these efforts, he soon realized that this prison was going to become a nightmare.
They knew what they wanted to do, but they did not know then what will come next. Now, I can tell you that when Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld came down there, he told me personally that he felt that this was going to be a temporary facility. And we had a discussion in private, and I told him I did not think it was going to be a temporary facility, that it would be here long after he was no longer the Secretary of Defense and I was no longer in the Marine Corps.
What were they supposed to do with these prisoners? How could they justify holding so many men indefinitely without trial? Was the war on terror, waged by the United States at the time, following new rules? According to Alka Pradhan, these are questions that remain unanswered, which is why they haven't yet been able to close Guantanamo down.
The military commissions were set up specifically to take these particular Muslim men out of the U.S. justice system, not have to apply U.S. law to them, not have to give them the rights that they would be entitled to in terms of due process. And you do all of that on this island away from the United States that you make it extremely difficult to get to. You put up barriers for the press and for observers to come down. Guantanamo never should have existed in the first place. We should never have places like this that are outside the law.
What hope remains for the detainees who have no charges against them? Most of them are Yemenis and cannot return to their country because of prevailing political instability. Therefore, other countries must do their part.
Here, I would say, is our role, which we can go to our governments and to ask them to turn to the United States, to say we would be ready to take them into our countries. We are all facing the growing rise of right extreme parties. So, and I think in this situation it is more complicated probably for heads of government or to say we have also a responsibility to help those who are imprisoned in Guantanamo.
So detainees remain in legal limbo, a situation made possible by the fact that Guantanamo is not part of the United States.
It's always been used by the United States because it has an extra legal function. It is in a country that we don't have diplomatic relations with. And for many years, administrations have used that base that was established in 1903 as a place to put people where we couldn't decide what to do with them.
It was under this short treaty of 1903 that a newly independent Cuba, but occupied by the American Army, was forced to accept a permanent naval base on its territory. So every year, the United States has to pay rent, an unbeatable price of $4,085 a year. Yet no checks have been cashed since 1960.
The treaty requires both sides to agree at the same time to close it. And of course, with the relations, the bad relations that we have with the Cuban government, that's not going to happen.
As far as the Cubans are concerned, this is not the time for reconciliation. On the 12th of June this year, imposing silhouettes appeared off the coast of Havana. Russian warships, accompanied by a nuclear submarine. A strange display regarded as a show of power by the Kremlin. At a time when fists were clenching over the matter of Ukraine, a gust of Cold War blew in with the vessels.
De quien más tenemos tradición de visitas es la Armada rusa, pero bueno, un submarino nuclear, o sea, de propulsión nuclear, no. Es la primera vez que tenemos la oportunidad de verlo.
Here, Guantanamo has always been regarded as a territory illegally occupied by the Americans.
Lo considero totalmente ilegal, ya que es una ocupación de otra nación en nuestro territorio cubano.
Eso es un territorio libre de Cuba y que no es libre porque la tienen ocupada personas que no tienen que estar ahí.
But it is also a diplomatic issue of potentially explosive proportions. The Cuban government refused to answer our questions. It also refused access to the Guantanamo region, the Cuban province that surrounds the American base. This former Cuban ambassador to Europe did, however, agree to meet us.
Yo creo que la base hay que devolverla. Yo creo que el territorio tiene que en algún momento regresar a Cuba. Ahora, hay un problema práctico. La base, el territorio está ocupado por Estados Unidos y no es verosímil ni es lógico que Cuba le declare la guerra a Estados Unidos e invada el territorio. Eso sería una estupidez. Por tanto, es lícito en una relación diplomática que una de las dos partes le diga a la otra, yo quiero revisar el tratado.
The poor but existing diplomatic relations between the two countries could make this possible, according to the former diplomat.
Primero, que tenga límite de tiempo. Es decir, es un tratado por 10 años, por 20 años, pero como todo tratado normal, tiene que tener un fin. Y segundo, ustedes tienen que pagar una cifra razonable. Y bueno, hay que reconocer que si no la quieren devolver, Cuba no tiene forma de obligarlos a devolverla. Yo creo que el gobierno de Cuba está ante un callejón sin salida.
However frustrating it may be for Cubans, all indications are that the US will not be closing the base anytime soon. As for closing the prison, convicted prisoners could be transferred to high-security prisons in the United States, and the others released, as required by international law. From behind bars, some still dream of rebuilding their lives. While in prison, Mansour drew up a business plan for a farm, self-sufficient in food and energy, with 4 of his fellow inmates.
Here the location of the, it will be Al-Hudaydah. So it's like here.
200 handwritten and hand-drawn pages.
I did this statistics about how many countries produce electricity by windmill. That one until 2010. This is the communication. I talk about how the communication, like the network, like computer connected to server, to satellite, computer, this signaling and receiving. This is how we envision the world. And this is the phone.
Most of the 30 men still held at Guantanamo are in poor health and approaching old age. And those who have not been charged are still waiting for a possible release, in a climate of near complete indifference.
Most Americans have forgotten that Guantanamo exists. But I'll assure you that our adversaries haven't forgotten that Guantanamo exists. So there is a real problem. It's used as a recruiting tool for terrorism. It also makes it very difficult for us to make the claim that we are a nation of laws, that we respect the law, and that our Constitution means anything. Neither political party is anxious to invest the political capital that would be required to close Guantanamo. And yet at the same time, if you're going to close Guantanamo, assign one person with that sole responsibility. Give them the authority and the power to make some very tough decisions. And as I said, I was given 96 hours to open it. I think it'd be fair to give them 96 days to close it.
As we leave the base, we catch a glimpse of the prison in the distance. A distant fortress that will probably never reveal all its secrets.